Welcome to Nothing But Net. I'm Dave Rudin, and we're ready for a little bit of a recap after we've had the opening conference games on Friday night. And we're going to get right into it. Joining me, as always, the coach, Mike Walsh. Mike, how you doing today?
Good, good. I'm doing great. First game was kind of like something to find out a little bit about each team, and I think we did. But you had the most important game of the year, I think, so far, the one game, and that was the Ridgefield Staples game.
Yeah, I think we'll get into that right off the bat. That's where I started. Those were the two teams that lasted the longest last year, with Staples getting to the Division Two final and Ridgefield Division One semifinals. And I have some, I know we both had some first impressions. It wasn't a particularly pretty game. I like to see these two teams play in 2 weeks after they've had a little rhythm and not time off, but a combined 7 for 35 from 3-point range. So there were enough bricks to start a tear down and build it back up on Cross Highway. But there was a lot of good defensive play too that contributed to that. And there are a whole bunch of different pieces to break down. What we've talked about it off podcast. What are some of your initial impressions?
No, I mean, it just, as we talked a little bit, surprisingly, the last two games I've seen Ridgefield, first against Notre Dame and Fairfield, and then last night against Staples, is that their defense has carried them. They have not been really, I think, as efficient offensively as they'd like to be, obviously. You talked about their three-point shooting, uh, and you talked about their foul shooting. I'm sure that the next practice, Andrew had him in there shooting foul shots because I don't know. You had the stat. What were they from the foul line?
7 for 18.
7 for 18. Well, that's that obviously not where you
If
want
they
to be.
if they make 2/3 of their shots, they don't have to sweat out a possible game tying shot at the end there by Adam Udell.
Yeah, no question. And the thing that from just watching the game was that Richfield took the 18 foul shots, or where Staples only shot 6 times. And I thought that physically, uh, Ridgefield played a tough game. I mean, they were all over Sam Klatsko. They were holding, grabbing, everything kind of like legal. But
You think this is a real physical Ridgefield team compared to past teams I know?
yeah, I thought they were pretty physical. And I listen. I give them credit for that. They're experienced. They stay in front of it and they contest shots and they box out and they do the fundamental things and rebound. And that's what carried them against Staples. And Staples offensively couldn't do the things that they like to do. And I think they did show something though. They battled all the way, and the last shot didn't go in; it would have tied it. And that was with Sam Kletzko on the bench with the, I guess, leg cramps and
Yeah,
and also beaten down. I think on the. I mean, he's going to have a target on his back, and he's going to see that kind of defense. I think as the season goes on, but he's the type of kid, and he has kids around him. I think that are better than people think they are. You saw him up close and personal. What did you think?
I have more impressions off this game on Staples than Ridgefield, only because I didn't really know what to expect from Staples coming into this year. I think I told you right off the bat, this was a game where I think Ridgefield walked away saying, how did we not win this by double figures? And Staples came away saying, we almost stole one here. Uh, you know, Ridgefield, and you can't make too much off of one game. You look at Ridgefield and the 8 or 9 guys they have, and you say if those guys play the way we think they're capable of, there might be a little bit of a gap between them and the rest of the league. I think it's possible, but they didn't really show it. They had a huge size advantage, and they really weren't able to take advantage of it. Total rebounds were 29-29. Missed a lot of easy shots in the paint. one thing, and I know we talk about it takes a little bit longer for football players to get in shape, and Nick Skenga, their key big man, is a football player, and you can tell he's just starting to round into form. Uh, Alistair Walsh, far and away, is the player that makes Ridgefield work. He's the engine. He's the connective tissue between the rest of the team. So you know what? I don't know off of one game and what you told me from the Notre Dame Fairfield game, if Ridgefield's going to be a team that utilizes everything and they're as good as they look in warm-ups, or if they're a team with talent and depth, but maybe a little bit flawed in areas, and they're not, and they're definitely a favorite, but not as big a gap between
Well,
them and
the
the rest
one
of the
thing,
pack. What are your Ridgefield? Because then I want to get into Staples after.
the one thing you know about Ridgefield and all the teams really, but Ridgefield more than anything. Last year they started off a little bit slow, but they got better and better as they went on. And I think the same thing will happen. They will not shoot that kind of percentage from the foul line again. I guarantee you that. And I
That was
think their three
definitely an
point
aberration. That was definite aberration.
and I think their free throw shooting will improve. The defense is, I think, in your article was mentioned by Alistair Walsh that that's what they rely on, and they have for those past two games. And I think that that's the thing that's going to carry them, into the FCAC playoffs, and hopefully they're trying for another FCI championship, but they are vulnerable, I think, this year. Now, whether the rest of the league is good enough to do that, we'll find out. Staples, on the other hand, I think is going to keep getting better and better. Don't forget, they play mostly juniors and sophomores. So, and a lot of them don't have varsity experience. And I think they're just going to get better and better. So that, who knows, by the end of the year in the playoffs, they may see Ridgefield again, and the outcome could be different.
Yeah, in terms of finishing up on Ridgefield, if you had to ask me, I would say the parts of their game that they struggled on was more an aberration than indicative of what's to come. And I would make Ridgefield a buy, not a hold right now if they were a stock. I'm really and I wasn't down on Staples. I just didn't know what to expect with Staples with all the losses. I I came away really impressed with Staples. I think they're going to be a if people are thought they're going to struggle, I think they're going to be better. I told you this, and I don't know that we agree on this one. I think the Staples team by the end of the year could be better than last year's team, because I think the starting five, with all five players collectively, could be better. And my biggest takeaway was Adam Udell, who's an outstanding lacrosse player, but he's not just a good athlete who plays basketball. He's a good athlete who's a basketball player, and he went 14 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. And I think him and Clacko, who had an off game, he was 6 for 17 shooting, and I overheard him in the locker room when I was interviewing Dave Goldschmidt saying, that'd be the worst shooting game I ever had. I don't think we're going to see too many games where he struggles and scores 13 points. I think I love Clacking and Udell as a 1-2 punch in the backcourt.
Well, I got to tell you honestly, I don't know if he's going to see the kind of defense in next games that Ridgefield, played him. They played very tough on him, very physical, and I think it had a result that's why he had the worst shooting game he's had in his career. So, the other kids are going to have to take a load off, and they have some talent besides Klatsko. They have, as you mentioned, Adam Udall. Tobias is a pretty good player. The kid that
Nathan
surprised me was
Smith.
Nathan Smith. He
Yeah,
had three threes. I know
he
he
had
could
three
catch a
three.
ball,
He
but
was
he can shoot the basketball too.
his threes were the reason they positioned themselves and made the run at the end of the fourth quarter. I kept waiting for Ridgefield to go on the run to put the game away, and it never happened. It never came. And I agree with, Ridgefield's defense. Ridgefield's going to play defense, and Ridgefield knows how to win. It's just a program that's been there. And there's a lot to be said when you know how to win and you get into these tight games. It might be different players, but there's just a feeling that permeates the program. But Staples is feisty, and I know they don't have a lot of height, but they play bigger than they are. And what team out there do you see where Staples is gonna go out there and you say they have no chance? They're gonna play with everybody.
Well, let me say this about Staples. Of course, I disagree with you about this year and last year. When you have the big 6'7" guy and who's now in Indiana, uh, that means an awful lot. And they'll feel his absence. The thing that I have to wonder about Staples is they brought intensity. They wanted to show everybody they could play with Richfield. Now, will they bring that same intensity to every game they play? Even last year, they were intense against Ridgefield. They played hard and they beat them. But then they had a struggle with McMahon and lost. And I think they lost another game that they probably shouldn't have lost. So can they bring that intensity every game? They still have to show that. And they're young and they're going to get better. But I still make Ridgefield the favorite. But there were other teams that could knock them off. If you want to mention some of the other teams that I saw this
Yeah,
past week.
let's bounce around some other games here. Probably the second biggest game of the night took place at Fairfield Ward, and everybody I've talked to, and I'll get to see them this week finally. But everybody I've talked to, including you, have been really high on the Mustangs, and they went out and against Wilton, very good team, and led by 16 points after three quarters and held on for a 63-51 win. And looking over the box score, a couple. I don't think we knew a lot about some of the individual ward players, but Ryan Moore went out and scored 22 points. He's only a junior, and Matt Corrigan had 17. He's only a sophomore. So, two guys we knew nothing about coming into the season. And if that's indicative of what we're going to see, Ward's going to be a top four team.
Well, let me say this, Dave. I got to watch that game, and Wilton actually jumped out to an 8-2 lead to start the game, and I said, "Oh, Ward's in trouble." But they didn't panic at all. Justin Henry, who's taking over for Ryan Swaller, I think you have to give him a lot of credit. The team is well coached. They play hard. They can shoot it. I've seen them twice now. I saw them again against Notre Dame and Fairfield in the Christmas tournament, and they gave Notre Dame everything they could handle. They lost by 4, but it was close right to the end. And they shoot the ball well. You look at you mentioned Corrigan. He had 5 threes, and Moore had 4 threes. That's 9 threes right there against a Wilton team that usually plays pretty good defense. They didn't that night. And when you shoot the ball, obviously you look a lot better than maybe you are. But they also rebounded. Kramer was pretty tough. He's one returning starter from last year, I think. The rest of the team is pretty young and inexperienced. And they play a 2-2-1 against Wilton, which forced them to bring the ball up and turn it over at times. And then they play a tough man-to-man. They really move the ball well on offense. They, to me, are definitely a top 4 team, and on a given night could beat anybody. I wouldn't want to draw them and they will be in the playoffs in their first round because they'll be out in their home court, and they'll shoot probably just as well as they shot against Wilton. So I mean, it's a team to be reckoned with. I think, as I'm not mistaken, they just seem to carry on, almost like Ridgefield, but they never get there. Maybe this is the year they get there. I don't know. I'm very impressed with them, and the coach who's taken over has done a great job. So I mean, I think they're in the top 4, I should say.
Well, we have a history of first-year coaches. Dave Goldshore last year, first-year coach, and Staples coach to the Division II final. Maybe with Justin Henry now. We see the second
Maybe
first.
we're onto something.
They're gonna make a run. I don't have a lot to say about them because I haven't seen them at all, but there's probably been more positive buzz on them from everybody I've spoken to, and I've spoken to a lot of people than any other team in the league. And I think it's more people just assumed maybe Ward was going to drop off or because of losing Ryan as coach and your boy Jack Plesser and Melson transferring, but uh, and again, there's so many teams we knew little about, but yeah, I'm anxious to see Ward. They play Trumbull Friday night, so I'll get to
That should be a good one.
see them for the
Yeah.
first time, and Wilton's just kind of been a holding pattern for me. I don't have a
Well,
strong feeling about them yet, one way or another.
let me say this: having watched them against Ward, uh, I wouldn't get that down on them. I think they still have players. I think they have talent. I think that they can, you know, make the playoffs and then give people trouble in the playoffs. Mainly because of the talent of the players, but also because of Joel. He'll figure things out. You have a bad game every once in a while, and when the other team shoots like Ward shot, they make you look even worse. But they'll be back, and Joe will have them on target. But I'm very impressed with Ward.
Yep, they're definitely a team on my radar and one I'm looking. There are two teams I'm looking forward to really seeing, and I'll see them both this week. Uh, Danbury 64-51 win over New Canaan. A typical Danbury performance where Cam Perkins, who we really didn't talk about in terms of sort of singling out players, but a definite player of the year candidate, had 25. Nez Perkins had 14. And then a kid I don't know about. I know we're kind of curious what Danbury's supporting cast is like. Trenton Frazier had 11 points, and I know Danbury got off to a huge lead, and I think applied the knockout punch early. And New Canaan is yeah, New Canaan's a team I think right now that is going to play really good defense, is going to be well coached, but is going to struggle to score.
No, I think scoring is their issue. They got behind. I saw parts of that game. They got behind 15-0, I think, or maybe 15-2, and they actually started out playing zone, which I thought was a good thing. I thought the Danbury might struggle against the zone, but they certainly didn't. They got ahead to the big lead, and New Canaan couldn't hit a shot. Then Danny went man, and he played them pretty even the rest of the way. The Graham
Griffin
Buchanan,
Bramley, yeah.
Abramovich, right? Excuse me. He had 18, including four threes, and he's right now their offense. And once they develop some of their athletes, and if they can develop them and they can score a little bit, I think New Canaan, could be vying for one of the playoff spots. But Danbury, I didn't see a lot of depth. The three that you mentioned, obviously, and Cam is capable of carrying a team. They're going to have to put it all together and have a hot streak to be successful winning the FCX, but they will be in the playoffs.
Yeah,
The
Danbury's definitely a contender, and this year when you have one or two really really good players, it's going to have more of an impact, I think, than normal years. Uh, New Canaan's a team I expect to be better over the second half of the season. How good, I don't know. I don't know what their ceiling is, but I think they'll be a second half team.
Well, in relation to the rest of the league, I think they have a shot at making the playoffs as a 7 or 8 seed. The team we haven't talked about and I want to talk about is Trumbull. Now,
That's where I was
Trumbull
headed
really
next.
hasn't Trumbull really hasn't played anybody, but I think that they could be very good. They have four really good players. Starting with Ryan Johnson. who's a junior. I think he might be their leading scorer right now. Brendan Fowler, who's a senior. And then Sam Wilson, a sophomore. But the one that surprised me the most is the all worlds or all
You're
soccer
you're
player.
becoming you're becoming a big Owen Bull fan.
Yeah, I mean, he
That's
can.
because you can. That's because you can pronounce his name without any trouble.
It's an easy name to pronounce, thank God. But no, I mean, he can score. He can rebound. He's the type of athlete that you need to be successful. So they have four people and a couple of guys coming off the bench that can give them the depth. Now, I really want to see him against a good team, and you'll see them Tuesday night against a good team playing Danbury. That should be a good game. They have them on their home court. I think that you know if I had to pick a favorite, I'd pick Trumbull, but they got to stop the Perkins guys, and nobody better, by the way, than that. Than obviously, Buddy's an experienced coach. He's been around a long time, and now he's got his sidekick Colin Devine with him.
Yeah,
They'll come up
I'm
with
looking forward to seeing Colin.
they bump into each other on the sidelines. I think one of these days Colin's going to take a charge on him, but it's just interesting to see the dynamic between them and the assistant coach who's been with Buddy forever. But really, they're going to find out about him, and I think they'll develop a plan to limit. We're going to stop. You're not going to stop Cam Perkins. He's going to get his 20 points, but maybe shut the others down and then get enough scoring from the four guys that we mentioned to beat them. So that'll tell us a lot about Trumbull and Danbury for that matter too. But I like Trumbull in that game.
Yeah, I'm on the Trumbull beat this week with them against Stanbury and Ward. So I'm looking forward. Like you said, they haven't played anybody, but they've looked really good. You know, the four guys you mentioned scored between 13 and 18 points against West Hill. They hit 7 threes. They're athletic. Uh, it's they're good. The question is how good they are, and we'll learn a lot about them this week. Uh, the other team that I know we thought very highly of going into the season was Stanford, and they came away with a 55-50 win against St. Joseph. And EJ Presley is starting to show not starting to show, but displayed his versatility in that game. He went 16, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, but I think maybe the most noteworthy stat of Friday night is he shut down TJ Wright and held him to 6 points. And the other thing actually that stood out about it too is I know JJ Salvatore's been out sick, and Ryan Connors, who's had a couple of really good games for them, he went 16 points and 6 rebounds. And if Connors is going to be consistent like that with the other guys they have, Stanford's starting five is going to be one of the best in the league.
Well, Stanford will be there. There's no question about it. I'm really impressed with the stat on TJ Wright because, as I think we said before, TJ Wright's one of the better scorers in the league. And Presley did a super job. He's just a great athlete. I mean, you look him on a football field, he dictates, and now in basketball, he's not only good offensively, but he's good defensively. And he's going to get better and better because, he's getting over that football year. So that and now Ryan Connor's coming along. I think Dan Latour has the ingredients of a team that could be challenging for an FCX title. It's how he's able to develop those players. I think will be the key. And it's going to be a test for him too because I don't think he's ever had a team in that position. Last year they were kind of like snuck up on the league and did get some good wins. Now, they're one of the top four teams, in my opinion, and he's going to have to put them all together. And I'm sure Dan will too, because he's had experience.
Yeah, I think the big thing for Stanford where they have to differentiate themselves from last year, they were kind of all over the place last year. You never really knew what to expect from them on any night. There were nights where they played really good teams and came away with wins. And there were games where they were heavily favored and they struggled. So I think the big question with them is going to be consistency. But I think one of the other equalizers there is all these guys that we're talking about, they played last year. So they've been there. They know what it takes to win. And they're going to be really athletic. Like I said, Salvatore's been out. You said he's had a sinus infection, I think. And we didn't even mention Winchester. So that's a pretty good starting five.
No, I think you're right. And they've had some role players off the bench that have done a pretty nice job too. But again, this will be the year they have the target on their back. They're going to have to accept that, and they're going to have to, play as well as they can to be successful. Another team that we haven't mentioned, well, several teams we haven't mentioned, but one of my favorite teams on getting a good start is John Daly and Ludlow. I
I knew
watched
you
them
were
the other
going.
night again.
Yeah. I thought I was going to play playmaker bouncing the games, but you're bouncing to all the ones that I'm about to go to. But I know, yeah, Ludlow's our sleeper team to watch in terms of. I think we both think there's a top seven right now, and who's going to be battling behind them. And I think you have a player that's replacing Plusser as
Oh,
your.
I love this kid, Tate Mahoney. I mean, I think he's really great. He had 25 the other night against Central. But you know, points total is one thing, but how you get those points is important. I think they were down one. He scored. Then another time down the court, he bangs a three to put him up three. He just does all the things, gets key rebounds. Of course, his help. I'm assuming it's his brother Charlie. The two of them are the dynamic duo of the Ludlow team, and they've carried them to a really nice start. I can't remember Ludlow getting off to a 5-1 start, but and their schedule coming up, they have a real chance at making the playoffs. And as I say, I'm rooting for my man Tate Mahoney and John Daly. John does a great job with those kids. So uh, and they're always around the playoffs. So not that I pick one team over the other, but I'd like to see them make the playoffs.
I know we're both big John Daly fans. He's a great coach. His team's never underachieved. He gets the most out of all of them, and we've seen what he's done in years where he's had talent to work with. It's been a little dry from him the last couple of years, and Ludlow's definitely a team to keep an eye on. They haven't played a particularly tough schedule yet, but you know what? With the kind of team that John has, maybe that's a good thing because they're gaining confidence right now and have to feel good about themselves. And I think that'll probably help them when the more difficult part of their schedule starts coming up.
No, I agree 110% with that, Dave. And I think it's real important. That's part of being a good coach is getting a schedule where you can play teams that you gain confidence. It's one thing if you're Ridgefield and you can schedule the Windsors and the Notre Dame of Fairfield and people like that because you have a good team. But when you have a team you're developing, you have to get a schedule to give them confidence. So I think John has done that. Melzer does that at New Canaan too. He does a good job over there as far as his early season schedule. But
It's knowing your players.
what?
It's all about knowing your players. I, you know,
Yeah,
we
absolutely. And
we praise Drew over at Ridgefield, and rightfully so, for playing a particularly difficult non-league schedule and being willing to maybe risk a loss or two to get his team better for the postseason. And Ridgefield's in a position to do that. If John had that kind of schedule, his team probably would be 1-5 and not 5-1 and not have the.
well, I don't know. He's got Tate Mahoney. Come on, he could
But
be.
you got Tim Mahoney,
He's better than 1-5, Tate Mahoney. But no, and like looking at around at some of the other teams, Greenwich to me has a way to go. They lost a tough one to McMahon, who's rebuilding also. The team that maybe because they have Jalen Brown can sneak into the playoffs is Norwalk. he can carry a team, and he's done it so far. Now they really haven't played too many good teams, but that's possible. So Norwalk and Coach Hickey, maybe they can figure things out. He's got a couple of kids around him that aren't too bad. They're coming along as players. So again, that's going to be a possibility. And the same thing with St. Joe's. I mean, TJ Wright had a bad game, but there aren't too many Elijah EJ Presleys that are going to be shutting him down. He's going to score. So again, I think I hate to say it, but there are about 7 teams that I almost want to say are going to make the playoffs. The eighth seed, the ninth, the eighth seed, that last seed, um, I think it's wide open. Maybe even the seventh seed too. But we'll find out in the coming weeks. We've only had one, and we're already discussing, the playoff spots. So I can't wait to see things as they go forward.
I think the other thing we have to stress is we're going off one game, one league game right now. So, a team that looked really good or really bad, things can change dramatically. So, I'm not going out on the edge of the limb with anything right now. These are really
Well, Joe
initial.
Garriak and Wilton is hoping you're right.
Yeah,
That one's not going to go off one game, and I agree with you. You won't go off one game, but we do have some preseason, pre-league games to go on too. So we're starting to get a clearer picture of what's going on in the FCAC. But it's going to be fun every night. I wish I was you being able to go up to Trumbull, Danbury. That's going to be a great game. And then Ward and Trumbull the following Friday. Another good game.
I'll tell you what, though. This is a really, really weak schedule this week. Those are I make out a list like every Wednesday or Thursday in all sports for possible games to cover, and those are the only 2 games. Those if indeed is a top 7 as we had, those are the only 2 games where top 7 teams are playing each other.
Well, I mean, that's a good thing. And, there are still other games that we can look around at and get an indication, but those games stand out. And I'm sure your coverage will be great. And we'll be reading the reading report and talking about it on the podcast.
All right. Well, listen, I've made it through the podcast here relatively cough-free, and I don't know if that's going to stay much longer now. So let's wrap this one. Let's wrap this one up. I don't think we have too much else to talk about, do we?
No, I don't think so. I think we've covered the first week of
You
action.
actually have a big game to go to. You won't come to an FCAC game, but I know you're leaving here in 20 minutes. What game do we have coming up this
Well, I
afternoon?
got my grandson EJ's sixth grade basketball team. He's in fifth grade, but he plays on the sixth grade team at the JCC. They got a big game against Darien, so we'll see that action too.
What's the scouting report on your grandson?
I think they're 3-3. They're working at it, but it's a good group of kids, and you got to learn how to play basketball, and this is the way they learn how to play basketball.
He got potential. He gonna be a player, you think? Possibility?
Anyway, I'm sorry.
Is he got the possibility he's gonna be a player? You like what he's showing early on?
If he listens to his grandfather, he might be a player, but he doesn't listen to me. Uh, he's got to work on a few
And I'm
things, but
sure you
he's
have a lot, and I'm sure you have a lot to say to him.
too much probably. But I think it's fun to watch him play, and I enjoy going to his games, and also his younger brother. Almost as much as I enjoyed watching the NFHS network of my granddaughter playing basketball at Ponte Vedra JVs. Uh, I wish they were all a little bit better, but they don't have me coaching them, so they probably are going to be better.
Maybe we'll get you back. I have to take a ride down to Stanford. We got all our friends, all my friends from my advocate days who are there. But I'll tell you what, I don't cover grandchildren. When they get to high school, I'm retiring because I'll probably be retired, hopefully. But
Well,
it's
I'm hoping I'm still here when they get to high school. But anyway,
we're gonna be breaking down grandkid games. But why don't we'll save that for another day. And Mike, hopefully we have some good things to talk about next week. I'm sure we will. And actually, the fact that we don't have a lot of top sevens playing each other, let's see what some of these other teams that we don't have as a top seven right now. Let's see how they do against teams where we're a little bit higher on right now.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to the week. And again, things will be clearer as we go on. And I really enjoy doing this. You know,
So
so I
do I. I
appreciate
mean,
it.
this is like old times. I mean, we talk to each other about 5 days a week and talk to each other on my ride home from games. So this is fun for me. We'll do it again next weekend. So that's this week's episode of Nothing But Net. Again, I want to thank Mike Walsh for joining me as always. I want to thank Cooper Boardman for the sound editing. Thank all of you for listening. And a quick shout out also to the FCI boys basketball coaches who send it in box scores. That's not important to you, but it's important to Mike and I in terms of keeping up on the league. And boys basketball coaches rank with for me the coaches in one or two other
Yeah,
sports for being
I think the only ones that don't send him in is Ridgefield for some reason. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't want us to gain the secret
I
ingredient.
wasn't going to single anybody out, but
No, I'm sorry. I don't mean to sing you out, Andrew, but send those box scores in.
you have more success there than I do, so I'm gonna stick you on him. But like I said, that's this week's episode. We'll see y'all next week.